We're now joined by Dr. Jennifer Gant, a lecturer on our law programs. Jennifer, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So can you tell us a bit about the course and its pathways?
Certainly. So we have a standard LLB with honours course, and that all kind of begins in the same way. So we have a number of modules that they will take for the first 2 years that are the same. We also have a law with criminology pathway. So that follows the same pattern as the standard LLB, but then in the third year they get to take a number of criminology electives. We also have a number of pathways within the LLB, such as so there's a commercial law, company law pathway, there is a public policy pathway, and several other ones, which basically kind of mean you will take specified third-year modules to focus on a specific specialization.
Goodness, okay. And what kind of key skills would like law students develop?
I would like to say that University of Derby, the School of Law, we do things a little bit differently than a lot of other law schools. So we revalidated, I think 3 or 4 years ago now, and when we revalidated the course, we thought it was important to bring into it a number of skills and a focus on skills. So we've now developed what we call a skills spine. So essentially, their first year they take one whole year-long module that is around beginnings of legal skills, legal research, how to read cases, how to read legislation, some initial bits on writing, so the basic skills that you need to study the law. Okay. The second year, they do a module that I teach called Law and Business in Context, and this raises the skill level where we have to think about things like critical thinking, strategic thinking, but it also places what they're learning in the context of commercial awareness and business, which even though they're law students, when you're in the legal profession, you still have to consider business issues.
Sure.
And the third year, they do commercial awareness and business acumen. And this, again, builds on the skills that they've done in the second and first year to look at sort of immediate problem solving. So they might get a brief right there in the session and have to kind of work out together how to solve that particular problem, not just from a legal perspective, but also from a practical perspective. So it raises the skill level of these students, not just to practice in law, but into any profession. So I think that makes the law school quite unique in what it does in its provision.
Nice, goodness. I feel like you've kind of touched on it briefly, but what kind of modules can students take whilst on this course?
Absolutely. So in the first year, they take contract law, tort law, constitutional law, and administrative law.
Yep.
So all of them will take that, whatever pathway they're on. The second year, they take land law, tort law, criminal law, and the Law and Business in Context module, as well as a single term of EU law, because regardless of the fact that we've been through Brexit, we still operate and trade with the EU. Therefore, it's important that we understand how businesses are going to deal with those changes.
Absolutely.
And then in the third year, I'm not going to remember all of the modules because there's a number of electives that they can take during the third year. There's, I think, 3 around environmental law, dealing with different aspects of environmental law. There's evidence, company law, commercial and consumer law. I teach an employment law module myself. And I think domestic violence, family law, tons of different electives that they can choose to take in their third year.
It's quite varied.
Very varied.
Yeah.
And then not to mention the criminology modules that those following the law with criminology path can take, which include things like evidence and youth justice. And I'm not going to remember all of those.
No. I appreciate it. That's impressive. And what kind of opportunities are there for students to carry out work experience?
So there's quite a few different work experience opportunities. We have a lot of connections within the community and the region that offers things like internships and basic work experience, following people around in the magistrates court, for example. In our third year, we also have a module called Clinical Legal Skills, and that starts with kind of learning the skills and learning reflection and the things you need to do to actually go and then practice within our Student Legal Advice Centre. So the students who undertake the Clinical Legal Skills module in their third year are actually having to volunteer within the family law clinic. So they're having face-to-face interviews via Teams, but it's still, face-to-face via Teams, and doing interviews, advising clients under the supervision of a solicitor. So those students who take that get a whole year's worth on various weeks of work experience working in an actual clinic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. So you mentioned it a moment ago. Can you tell us more about the Student Legal Advice Centre?
Absolutely. So I've already mentioned family law. So we have a family law clinic. We deal with a lot of issues around accessing children. So fathers might come to ask for help to access their children if they're split up. We get little divorce questions, that kind of thing. We also have an immigration and family reunion clinic, which is focused on individuals who are coming over here to immigrate and then want to get their family to join them. So it's that kind of issue. We've also got a legal triage clinic, which is focused on helping other University of Derby students. So University of Derby students can come in, talk to our student legal advisors, and get help on things like, it's often housing or something of that nature. Okay. So there's that. We have a new clinic this year, which is Special Educational Needs and Disabilities. So it's a SEND clinic. That's the acronym for it. And that particular clinic focuses on issues surrounding access to education for children who have disabilities or neurodivergencies, and sort of interacting with the local authority, for example, to make sure those students are well served. We also have the Reach Out Clinic. That's another new clinic where we actually interact with prisoners in order to help them with certain family law matters. So that's a very interesting one that's just started this year. I also run the Business Law Clinic. That's focused on providing pro bono services to the business community, entrepreneurs within Derby and the region, as well as small business owners and that kind of thing. We also provide support for litigants in person, so individuals who are going into court to represent themselves. We don't advise them on the spot, but we sit with them and we give them support as far as we can. So that's all the kind of active clinics where people are actually getting practice experience. Yes. We also have 3 kind of more research-related clinics, one for each year. The first one is the Justice Project, where students will work on a project together that's around access to justice, and they'll do a presentation to not just the university and the law school, but also members of the community towards the end of the year. I run the Policy Clinic, which is aimed at second-year students, and that we usually get a brief, a policy brief, or a brief from someone in the community. This year we're looking at how to improve accessibility for individuals with neurodivergencies and disabilities to work within the volunteer sector. Wow. So there's a lot of employment law that covers how to help accessibility from an employment perspective, but it's a question around how do we deal with the same issues but within the volunteer sector. Right. And then the final one is the International Human Rights Clinic, which again, I think from the title is fairly obvious. It looks at international human rights, and it's similar to the Policy Clinic, but on an international scale.
My goodness, thank you. And
You're welcome.
You mentioned one had been introduced in the recent year.
Yeah.
Sounded quite interesting. So is it students that are working with inmates? Can you tell us a bit more about that?
I don't actually know that much about it, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't run that particular clinic, but it is obviously, because everyone needs to have their rights protected. It doesn't matter what you've done in your life. Access to justice is there for everyone. And, individuals who are in prison, yes, the students do help to deal with the kind of accessibility of children or children communication and that kind of thing.
Yes.
But other than that, I don't quite know how it works myself. So
that's fair. It's quite new course. I apologize.
No, it's okay. It's a very interesting one, but as it's very new and I don't work within it.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, thank you. So are there any professional links that the teaching team hold that they've been able to kind of bring into the student experience?
Absolutely. So most of us have some kind of practice background. So I qualified as a solicitor back in 2011, I believe it was, in Nottingham at Shoesmiths, and went into academia fairly shortly thereafter. But there are some who practiced for years in various areas. So we've got that practical expertise that we can pass on to our students through our teaching and through, scenarios that we might devise. We've also got a huge research sort of cohort now within the law school. So I also do quite a lot of research. So we publish, and we can bring that innovation, that interest, that theoretical context into our teaching as well. But apart from the staff, we've got, again, all these wonderful links with the community. We have guest speakers come in from law firms and other community organizations to provide real life perspective on what it's really like out there. So there's tons of links that we have, and we continue to build those links with the community and with organizations in the volunteer sector, for example, to create more opportunities for students.
Nice. My goodness. And what kind of facilities do students get to learn in?
Yeah, no problem. The law school is based at 1 Friargate Square, which is right in the centre of Derby, pretty close to the centre anyway.
Yes.
So the lecture halls themselves, they have all the digital stuff that you might need, as long as it's working, which most of the time it is. But the nice thing about it is it gives us the opportunity to use a lot of our digital teaching skills to increase the kind of level of access that students can have to the ways of teaching as well. But we've also got, there's blends downstairs for a cafe or something like that. We've got a few quiet study areas that students can go to. There's a full computer lab on the top floor, and all of the lecturers are based at 1 Friargate Square as well, so it makes us accessible too.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I've actually kind of been there on a tour. I've been in one of the courtrooms. It's fantastic. It blew me away, honestly.
Yeah, there is the moot courtroom as well, I forgot to mention, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's a really good courtroom,
It really is. I tried to recreate an episode of Law and Order on it.
Oh.
It didn't work out well at all.
We do all of our mooting in that courtroom, so it gives students a real life experience. And mooting is essentially pretend court cases and things like that. So they get to wear the wig, they get to wear the coats, everything, so it's good. Wow. It's a really good practical experience.
Quite an authentic experience,
Very
I imagine.
much so, yeah.
And lastly, are there any opportunities for students to study abroad?
Well, the School of Law doesn't offer a particular opportunity to study abroad, but the university does, so they can engage with the university's programs. But while we don't offer study abroad opportunities, we do have 3 school trips every year, or university trips, law school trips.
Okay.
So the first years tend to go down to London. We take a look at various law-related things, the law courts down there. This year, the second year's traditionally will go to The Hague. So that means we get to tour things like the International Criminal Court and that kind of thing, and also do a bit of traveling within the Netherlands.
Yes.
Most people go to Amsterdam, to be fair. This year, our third years are going to Edinburgh, but in the past we've gone to places like Dublin. And again, there's some things that we organise to try to get students to experience legal aspects.
Yes.
And we do organise some entertainment as well, but there's plenty of free time as well to kind of go and see what's going on in the city and hopefully not get into too much trouble.
Hopefully, emphasis.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. So what would you say is, weird question incoming, what would you say is kind of the criteria for students wanting to pick X country? Is it kind of like, I don't know, the modules that they're on, or just specific types of crime that happen in specific parts of those countries? What?
As in which one they'd want to go to?
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, they're actually aimed, first year goes to London, second year is available to go to The Hague.
Okay.
And that will probably be because, we do EU law in the second year, so there's that connection for the second year.
Right.
So we're going to an EU country. I think, honestly, for the third year, the choice is often around things that you can do to have a little bit of fun.
Nice. Okay, that's fantastic. Well, those are all the questions I have. Jennifer, I want to thank you for your time.
No problem.
That's fantastic.
Thank you very much.